Max Verstappen just dominated the Nürburgring. Nearly a full minute ahead. No mistakes. Complete control over one of the most dangerous races in the world. It looked like perfection. And then, a few hours later, he was disqualified. Not for something on track. Not for a crash. Not for a rival protest. For something no one saw. Something hidden deep in the system. For extra tires. That's it. 24 allowed. 28 used. And those 4 tires completely erased a flawless victory. But here's where it gets even crazier. This wasn't discovered during the race. No one noticed. No one questioned it. Until the data exposed everything. Barcode tracking. Technical reports. Post-race verification. Cold, undeniable proof. And the moment officials saw it, there was no debate. No second chance. Victory deleted. Results rewritten. History changed. And what this reveals about how races are really decided today will completely change the way you watch Formula One forever. Subscribe now, because the truth behind this is far bigger than just 4 tires. At first, nothing about that race felt questionable. That's what makes this so powerful. Because if you were watching it live, you saw total control. Verstappen wasn't under pressure. He wasn't defending. He wasn't even reacting. He was dictating everything. And that's a completely different level of dominance. Lap after lap, the gap kept growing. Not in sudden bursts. Not with aggressive moves. But slowly, consistently. The kind of pace that doesn't raise suspicion. It removes it. Because when a driver looks that comfortable, people stop looking deeper. They assume everything is perfect. And that's exactly what happened. No one questioned the strategy. No one questioned the rhythm of the race. No one asked why the car never seemed to struggle. But here's where things start to feel different. Because the Nürburgring doesn't allow clean races. It doesn't allow perfection. The track is too long. Too unpredictable. Too brutal on tires. Everyone pays the price. Grip fades. Performance drops. Drivers are forced to adapt. That's the reality of that circuit. But Verstappen's race didn't follow that reality. The performance stayed stable. Almost flat. No visible degradation. No moment where the car looked vulnerable. And at the time, that looked like brilliance. Now, it looks like something else. Because tires are the one limitation every team must respect. They define your pace, your strategy, your survival. And every team builds their entire race around that limit. So when one car appears to operate without that pressure, it changes everything. Because having access to more tires isn't just an advantage. It's freedom. Freedom to push harder. Freedom to avoid compromise. Freedom to reset performance whenever needed. And over 4 hours. That freedom becomes dominance. But here's the detail that no one realized in the moment. This advantage didn't look like an advantage. It looked like consistency. It looked like control. It looked like perfection. And that's why it went unnoticed. Because nothing felt wrong. Everything felt too right. Until the data told a different story. Because while other teams were managing decline, stretching their tires, fighting against the limits of the track, one car didn't have to. It was operating in a different window. A safer one. A faster one. A more controlled one. And no one could see it. Because the difference wasn't visible. It was hidden. Buried inside numbers no one checks during the race. And by the time those numbers were reviewed, the race was already over. The victory was already celebrated. The story was already believed. But it wasn't the truth. Because what looked like one of the most perfect performances ever was already starting to fall apart. And the moment officials began to look deeper, everything began to unravel. And this is where everything starts to collapse. Not on track. Not in front of millions of people. But in silence, after the race was already over. Because once the cars returned to the paddock, the real race began. The one no one watches. Post-race inspection. Now this is the part most fans never see. No cameras. No commentary. No emotion. Just engineers, officials, and data. Cold, precise, unforgiving data. Every component is checked. Every detail is verified. Every number is compared against the rules. And in this case, they weren't looking for something dramatic. They were looking for consistency. For alignment between what was used and what was allowed. And that's when they saw it. A number that didn't belong. At first, it's just a discrepancy. A small mismatch on a screen. Easy to ignore. But in motorsport, small discrepancies don't stay small. Because tires are not just counted. They are tracked individually. Each one has an identity. A barcode. A record. A full history tied to that specific car. So when officials checked the logs, there was no doubt. No estimation. No interpretation. Just a clear, undeniable truth. 24 allowed. 28 used. And in that exact moment, the race was already over. Not officially. Not publicly. But logically. Because once that limit is broken, the advantage already exists. And you cannot undo it. You cannot rewind the race. You cannot remove the benefit. Those extra tires already shaped every stint, every decision, every second of that performance. So the officials didn't need to debate. They didn't need to argue. They only needed to confirm. And once they did, there was only one possible outcome. Disqualification. Not a time penalty. Not a position drop. Complete removal. Because this isn't something you can adjust. This breaks the foundation of the result itself. And here's the part that makes it even more intense. While fans were still celebrating, while highlights were spreading, while the story of dominance was being told, inside that room, the real story had already been decided. A document prepared. A ruling finalized. And when it was finally released, it didn't feel dramatic. It felt instant. Because in one moment, Verstappen was the winner. And in the next, he wasn't even classified. Gone. Erased completely. And just like that, another team inherited victory. No overtake. No final battle. Just a silent correction. Now here's the detail that changes everything. There was no fight. No appeal. No argument from the team. They accepted it. Immediately. And that tells you something crucial. This wasn't a gray area. This wasn't open to interpretation. This was undeniable. Which leads to the question that no one can avoid. How does something this controlled fail? Because tire usage is one of the most monitored systems in endurance racing. It's planned before the race. Tracked during every stint. Checked after every stop. There are multiple layers designed to prevent exactly this. And yet, all of them failed. Not in one moment, but gradually, quietly, until one number crossed the line. And that number destroyed everything. And this is where the story stops being about one race and becomes something much more uncomfortable. Because what happened here wasn't chaos. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't explode in real time. It was quiet, controlled, almost invisible. A dominant victory, removed with a single document. And that silence is exactly what makes it powerful. Because it reveals how modern motorsport actually works. Not the version you see on track. The real version. The one controlled by systems. By data. By rules that leave absolutely no room for error. Because in this world, speed is not enough. Dominance is not enough. Even perfection is not enough. Unless it's perfect in every single detail. And that's the shift. That's what this moment exposes. Because Verstappen didn't lose due to performance. He didn't lose because of pressure. He didn't lose because someone beat him. He lost because one invisible detail didn't match. And in modern racing, that's all it takes. One number. One limit. One line crossed. And everything disappears. Completely. Now think about what that means. Because this doesn't just apply to this race. It applies to every race. Every team. Every weekend. They are all operating on the edge. Maximizing performance. Pushing limits. Balancing risk against regulation. And when you live in that space, mistakes are no longer obvious. They are microscopic. A count. A log. A detail buried deep inside a system. But those are the mistakes that matter most. Because those are the ones that erase everything. Not seconds. Not positions. Everything. And here's the part that changes how you see the sport forever. The bigger the dominance. The bigger the scrutiny. The more perfect it looks. The more it gets questioned. Because perfection attracts attention. And attention leads to inspection.